High Altitude Balloon 11, Solar Eclipse, 21 August 2017. Well, folks, this was a tough one. I had a lot of problems with this launch, and man, it was tough. Okay, I guess my problems with this launch started about 4 weeks before the launch even took place. I was planning to use my pickup truck to pull my travel trailer to Oregon so that we'll have a base to work from when we get there. And I was going to use the truck to do some scouting, some sites, and pick some launch locations. And I had enough time scheduled to do all of that, but things didn't go well on the front end, so things didn't go well on the back end. Okay, so about 4 weeks before the launch, I decided I was going to check the truck out just to make sure everything was going to be all right for the launch. And so I did an inspection on it, and it needed a lot of work. I needed to do some suspension work, I needed to do some engine work, and it took more time to do those things than I had originally planned for them to do. On the suspension work, I had to do upper and lower control arms, shocks, sway bar links, stuff like that. I also needed to put some tires on the truck and get an alignment. I took some time off from work and then I got all that work taken care of, but I still needed to do the engine work. So around the same time that I ordered the parts for the suspension, I ordered the parts for the engine. And I scheduled a little bit more time off from work so that I can do the engine work just before the launch. Okay, so I got into the engine. It needed a head gasket, and I noticed that it needed some other work once I got into it. So I ordered the parts and I rebuilt the heads and I was putting it all back together. And come to find out, I had some wrong parts. So I was scrambling trying to get the right parts for the truck so that we can get the launch taken care of. It ended up taking me what should have taken me 2 days. It took me 5 days to get done. And so that pushed the time that we were supposed to be in Salem up a long ways. My original plan was to get to Salem on the 18th. Well, not on the 18th, on the 19th. We were going to leave after school on the 18th. And then that way we would have had some time to, scout around and pick a good launch site, and just kind of relax while we were doing it. But I didn't get finished with the truck until Saturday. And it was about, I want to say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I was finished with the truck. And I was thinking at that time, you know, maybe I should just cancel the launch and just in Salem and just do it in Santa Anita. But I really wanted to get the full effect of the solar eclipse, and I would only get a 75% coverage from Santa Anita. So I sat down and I said that if we could leave by 9 o'clock that night and I drive for 4 hours, get past Sacramento, then we can drive the next day and arrive in Salem at about 5 o'clock. And I thought, well, if we can do that, then we could still launch the following morning for the solar eclipse. Okay, so we had the truck done, but I hadn't had a chance to look at the trailer because the truck was broke down. So I went over to the storage facility, picked up the trailer. When I got home, I got with my children and I told them, I was like, hey, if we can get this trailer done and get the truck loaded, we could still make the trip. I said, but everybody's got to pitch in. So we all got together and got to working on that trailer. And I would say about 6:30 in the afternoon, we were done. So I said, okay, looks like we're gonna be able to make the trip to Salem. So everybody go in, take a bath, get something to eat, and we're gonna be leaving by 9 o'clock. Part two, the balloon. All right, folks, this is gonna be strange. This whole situation with the balloon was like really out there. Okay. Around the same time that I ordered the parts for the truck, I started looking into getting the balloon for the Eclipse launch. And normally what I do is I shop around online and I try to get the best price I can for the parts that I use. And for like the last four balloons, I've been using this one company in particular because they had the best rates. But you know the saying, you get what you pay for. All right, this company has some lousy customer service, and I found that out for this launch. All right, this is what happened. I ordered the balloon about 3 weeks out because I knew it was going to take 1 week for the balloon to arrive. So first I had to find out what size balloon I needed. And so I weighed everything that I had, and I figured that a 1600 gram balloon would be the best fit for the payload. And I ordered it from the company, and it took a week and it did arrive. Okay. But when I got the package, I looked at it and I could see that the yellow tape, which is what this company uses, had been cut, and also that some clear tape had been placed over the area where it was cut. And I got to thinking, I was like, man, I think customs inspected this package. And when they did that, they used a razor blade to open the box. And I guess you know what happens when you put a razor blade and a balloon together. The balloon got slashed. Okay, well, that wasn't the end of the deal. When I contacted the company, I told them what happened. I said, look, customs inspected the package. They used a razor blade to open the box and they cut the balloon. I need you to send me another one. I still had 2 weeks, so that was enough time for me to get it. And I got a reply back from the company. They said that they was going to send me a 1200 gram balloon. And so I was like, no, that's not going to work. So I emailed them back and I said, look, I ordered a 1600 gram balloon. I need a 1600 gram balloon. A 1200 gram balloon is not going to work. And so I sent that email to them and they replied to it and they said that they would send me a 1600 gram balloon if I mailed them the original one back. I was like, okay, that'll be fine. I can do that. So what I did was I sent them a reply. I said, look, if you send me a prepaid self-addressed label, I will stick it on the box and send it back to you. That's no problem. Then the reply I got back from them was just their mailing address written on the email. And I was like, well, where's the label? And so I contacted them again. And then they told me they wanted me to mail the package back. And I got to thinking, I was like, no, I had nothing to do with the way you packaged your box and the way and customs cutting it. I was like, um, well, let me tell you this. Earlier on one of my other balloon launches, I bought a balloon from them, and I noticed that when they send the packages to the customer, they didn't really protect the balloon as well as the other companies that I purchased balloons from. Most of the companies will have some kind of a stopgap or a safety measure to make sure that the balloon is not damaged in shipping. And the way they usually do this is they would either, well, sometimes they did more than one thing, but most of the time they would wrap the balloon in either some foam rubber, they would put cardboard between the box and the balloon, and sometimes they would put the balloon in an oversized box in a bag on the bottom of it, so then if someone were to cut into the box, it wouldn't actually touch the balloon. Well, anyway, when I bought my first balloon from this company that I've been dealing with, I asked them about that. I was like, why aren't y'all putting any, like, safety measures to make sure that the balloon doesn't get damaged during shipping? And I got a reply from them, and they said, well, we've been doing this for a while, and this is the way we do it. We don't double box, and we don't do anything like that. We just wrap tape around the box and leave it at that. And I should have, that should have made a red flag for me, but I kept buying balloons from them, and I bought maybe three more after that. But anyway, when they told me that they wanted me to do the shipping. I was thinking, no, I don't want to do that because y'all didn't put any kind of safety measures in to protect the balloon in case customs were to open the box. And I said, this is on you. So that was my reply to them. And you know what they replied to me and said? They said that it was my fault the balloon was cut. And the reason why was I knew how they shipped the packages and I bought them from them anyway. And I'm like, these people are totally out of their mind. So right then and there, I knew I wasn't going to get nowhere with this company. So I emailed them back and I said, look, I see we're not going to see eye to eye on this issue, but I'm just going to go ahead and open up a resolution case with PayPal so we can get this solved. I said, I'm not going to even try and talk with y'all no more on this issue. And so it was about 2 weeks before the launch, and I didn't have no balloon. So I started looking around on the internet again to try to find me another balloon. Right now, I'm not really even caring how much the thing is going to cost. As long as it's at least a 1,600 gram balloon and it's the brand that I use, then it will work. So I first tried finding some companies that were in the United States that were local. No one had a 1,600 gram balloon. No one had a 2,000 gram balloon. Either one of those would have worked. But I was like, okay, I'm going to have to go overseas. I hope I have enough time to get the balloon in. All right. So I found this company in the United Kingdom, and they didn't have a 1,600 gram balloon, but they did have a 2,000. And we went back and forth on emails. I wanted to make sure that the balloon was going to be able to arrive here on time for the launch. And the guy that owned the company, he said, sure, it should make it there in 7 days. I was like, okay, that'll work. So I asked him, about the payment, and he said he only accepts PayPal. I was like, okay, well, PayPal is fine. I have a PayPal account. I will send you the money right now through PayPal, and you can ship it out today, I hope. And he was like, yeah, I can ship it out today. All right, so it was late our time, and after I made the transaction, I went ahead and went to sleep. The next morning, I got up and I checked my email, and I had an email from him, and he stated that PayPal had put a hold on the purchase. And I'm like, a hold on the purchase? Then I read further, he said that if I wanted to find out why the hold was done, I needed to contact PayPal. Okay, so it's my day off, and I was like, let me call these people and see what's going on. So I called PayPal, and I speak to a lady over there, and I was like, hey, I just made a purchase the following night for a balloon in the United Kingdom, and I really need that balloon shipped as soon as possible. He's not going to ship it until he gets his payment. And I said, well, what's the deal with this hold on my account? I said, I didn't buy the balloon with credit. I bought the balloon out of my checking account. And she said, oh, it's not, that's not the problem. She said, we're not putting a hold on your account. It's Homeland Security. I said, what? Homeland Security? I said, what is Homeland Security putting a hold on my balloon purchase for? And she said that she wasn't from that department, but she was just reading the notes off of the screen. And so I was like, well, what are they putting that hold on for? And she said, according to the screen, it's just for a review. I was like, a review? Well, how long is the review going to take? And she said she didn't know. And then I was like, well, what can you do? And then she said that she could put some notes on the account, and the department that's doing the review gets to it. They can read the notes. And I said, well, okay. Well, write down for them that this is a time sensitive matter. I need to get this balloon sent sooner than later. Please expedite this matter. And she typed that in, and I was thinking, man, what is Homeland Security putting a review on my balloon purchase? But anyway, I contacted the seller. I told the seller what was going on, and he said that I asked him. I said, has anybody else had a problem like this? Any of the other customers? And he was like, no, this is the first time. And I was like, it's first time for me too. I was like, this is weird. And I was like, well, the lady told me that she didn't wasn't really sure how long the review was going to take, and I was like thinking, I may not be able to do this purchase with you. Is there any other way that we can do it through other than PayPal? And he said, no, PayPal is the only place that he accepts money from. And I was like, well, I may have to cancel this and get the balloon somewhere else if they hold the purchase off too long, because I got to get the balloon here and time is short. And he said he understood, and that if they hadn't had it done in like a day or two, that he would go ahead and cancel the order. And I said that would be fine. So I got to thinking, I need a backup just in case this doesn't go through. So I started looking online some more to try to find another place that I can buy a balloon. And I got to thinking, I was like, why am I going through all these middlemen? Why don't I just try purchasing the balloon directly from the factory? So I went to the How Ye website and I found the link for sales. And I contacted someone in their sales department and asked, would it be possible for me to purchase my balloons directly from them instead of going through a third party? And they said, sure, you can purchase the balloons from us as long as you buy the minimum purchase. And I was like, well, okay, well, what is the minimum purchase? They said you need to buy at least 5 balloons. I was like, oh, shoot, that's okay. I can buy 5. I said, how much will 5 balloons cost me? And she told me, well, what kind of balloons are you planning on using? And I said, well, I usually use either a 1600 or a 2000. So let me have the price for both of them. So they got back to me, and I found out I could get 5 balloons from them for the same price I was paying for 2 retail. So I was like, hey, this is the way to go. So they told me that there were some other restrictions, and I was like, okay, well, what are the restrictions? And they said that it's going to take a little longer for you to get your stuff, and they require the payment to be in a bank draft, not credit cards and all that stuff. I said that's not going to be any problem. I said, let me check into this other deal that I have right now going, and then I'll get back with you. And I'm planning on doing 10 for next year, so I'll be buying 10 from you. And then they said, okay. And so, and anyway, on the next day, I got an email from the guy in the United Kingdom, and then he told me that the hold had been lifted and that he had mailed the balloon. So I was like, okay, that's good. The balloon is on its way. And so the whole thing was that was strange about this whole situation was the fact that the first balloon I ordered was cut in customs, and the second balloon I ordered had a hole put on it by Homeland Security. And I was like, what are the odds of both of those things happening? Part 3, the trip up. Okay, so we're all loaded up in the truck now, and we're getting ready to head out for the night. Plan was for us to get past Sacramento tonight, pull over, get some rest, and continue on the next morning. I had reservations in Salem for an RV park there, so we needed to get there by like 5 o'clock. And I really wanted to get there around 5 o'clock because I still had some work to do on the payload before the launch the next day. So I was planning on us driving maybe 4.5 hours the first night, and then we'll get up around 6 o'clock in the morning and continue on until 5 o'clock. And we get past Sacramento, and I'm starting to get tired. So I'm thinking next rest stop, we'll just pull over there and we'll camp out there for the night, and then we'll, leave in the morning. Anyway, we passed a sign that said next rest stop 2 miles. I was like, oh, good. We only have 2 miles to go. So we're driving on down the road. We get to the rest stop, and the rest stop was barricaded. I was like, oh well. Got to keep on going. And they said the next rest stop was 28 miles. I was like, well, we can do 28 more miles. So we drive, and we get on down the road, and we get to the next rest stop, and it was barricaded. And it said next rest stop 23 miles. I'm like, oh no, I don't think that next rest stop's gonna be open. I said the next RV park we pass, we're gonna stop. So about 5 miles down the road or so, I saw a little sign on the side of the road, next exit camping. I was like, okay, good. There's an RV park there. So we pull off and we go on down the ramp and we go past a pilot gas station. And sure enough, there's an RV park. So we make the turn, go into the park, and I go over to the night registration office. All right, well, I'm there. I'm trying to figure out how to make the do the reservation because all these places are different. But anyway, I looked at a sign and it said, look in the box to the left to get the registration card. So I look over and I see a box, but I don't see any registration cards. And I look up at the map and I said, oh, they only had 3 spots available when they closed that night. I bet you they're full now. I was like, we're going to have to keep on going. And so I was like, man, I'm tired though. I wonder how many more miles we got to that next rest stop. And I don't even know if that rest stop is going to be even open. So I was like, there's a gas station, Pilot gas station right across the street. I really don't like stopping at them travel centers, but hey, I'm desperate. So we pull on up into the Pilot truck stop, and I go around to where the tractor trailers are parking so we can like back into one of those spots. And there were no empty spots. I was like, man, I can't catch a break tonight. We're gonna have to get on back on the road. So we get back on the road. We're heading on down, and I was like, I sure hope another RV park comes up. And I looked down at my gas gauge. It said E. I was like, oh, we was just at the gas station. We're gonna have to pull off the next gas station we see. So we drove on down about another 5 miles or so, and we pulled into a gas station. While I was there, gassing up the truck and everything, I was like, I asked the attendant, I said, hey, do y'all, know of any place that we can, park for the night at an RV campground or somewhere? And he was like, well, there's an RV campground about 5 miles back the way you came. I was like, well, yeah, we already went to that one. They're full. He was like, I don't know of any other place around town. And I was like, well, we just passed 2 rest stops and both of them were closed, and they were saying the next one was coming up shortly, maybe another 18 miles or so. Do you know if that one's open? He was like, I don't know what's up with those rest stops, but they've been closed lately. And then he said, well, I'm not sure if that third one is open, but it may be. And I was like, well, do you know of any other place that we can if that one's closed? He was like, well, there's a Walmart about 10 miles past that rest stop. I was like, Walmart? He was like, yeah, it's a Walmart about 10 miles past. I was like, you can camp at a Walmart? He was like, yeah, people do it all the time. I was like, well, I'm desperate. If it comes down to that, then that's what I'm going to do. So we get back on the road, and I'm driving on down. We get to the rest stop. Sure enough, it's closed too. I was like, this don't make no sense. So we go on, drive a little bit further. We see the Walmart on the side of the road. We make the exit and go up, and when we turn into the parking lot, we see about 2 or 3 campers there. And I was like, oh, well, I guess you can camp out at the Walmart parking lot. So we pull over to a little corner of the parking lot, and that's where we spent the night the first night. The next morning, we got up bright and early and got a little bite to eat and got back on the road. And we drove all that day, and we eventually got to Salem. It was about maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was thinking to myself, man, we did good time. We got here right on time. And so it took us about another 15 minutes or so to get to the RV place. We pulled in, I parked, and I went over to the office and I told them my name and told them I had a reservation. And they looked in the book and they was like, we overbooked. We don't have your spot. And I was like, what? And they said, yeah, we're overbooked. And I said, well, do you know of any other place in town that has any available spots? And then the lady said, well, I don't think anybody else is going to have any spots in town. We're so full. And I was like, well, my trailer is set up for dry camping. I was like, do you know any place in town that we can dry camp? And then she was like, they do have some dry camping spots over at the fairgrounds. You can go camp out over there. I was like, oh, well, that sounds good. We can go camp out at the fairgrounds. So I got directions from her, and we were on our way. We get down to the fairgrounds, and I see an attendant standing out, at the driveway. So we pull over to the driveway. I lower my window and I ask him. I say, "Hey, where do I register to get one of these spots?" And the guy said, "You're not registered?" And I was like, "No." I said, I told him my situation and everything, and he was like, "Well, we're all booked up too." And I was like, "Oh, you're booked up too?" I was like, "Do you know of any other place in town I can go dry camp at then?" And then he said, "Well, you can go over to the Walmart parking lot." And I was like, "The Walmart parking lot?" Then I was like, "That's the only choice we got." And he was like, "Yeah, it's the only other place I could think of." So I was like, "Well, give me the directions to the Walmart." So he gave me the directions to the Walmart. When we was heading on down the road, we pulled off, and sure enough, there's the Walmart. So we pull in, and when we get there, we see there's about maybe two or three other campers already there. So we pull over in a little corner where they were, out the way. So then we want to, block the parking and all that. And it's getting about, oh, maybe it's pushing almost 7 o'clock now. And I needed to have my payload done by this time, but we're not even parked yet. We don't even have a place to stay. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna pull over here. We're gonna get a bite to eat, and then I'm gonna have to get working on this payload because we're gonna have to get up early in the morning and head out to the launch site. So I told my daughter to go into the camper and to fix my other children some a snack to eat, and I stayed in the pickup truck and I was going over the GPS to try to get an idea of how long it was going to take to get to that next launch site. So after I got finished doing that, and I walked over into the trailer, and my children were eating. So I asked, I said, "Do y'all have everything I need?" And they said, "Well, we would need some juice." And I was like, "You know what? I need some batteries and some other stuff for the payload too. So we might as well go on into the Walmart and get some juice, and we can get the batteries and stuff I need for the payload." All right. So we walk on down to the Walmart, and we go and get the supplies we need and everything. And we're walking back over to the camper, and we see the Walmart manager standing there and talking to one of the people over that was camped out next to us. And I was like, I wonder what they over there talking about. And so we walk on a little bit further and everything. My daughter looks up, she sees a sign, and it says, "No camping or overnight parking." And I'm like, "Man, we can't even park here." And I was like, "Well, that manager didn't talk to us directly. We gonna just pretend like we didn't see that sign. Let's go on back over to the camper because I need to get that thing done." So we go into the camper, and my children, they get the juice and they make another little snack, and they sitting there, drinking the juice and eating. And I'm sitting there piddling around with my payload. I'm thinking, I hope we can stay here. So after my daughter and my children finished eating, I told my daughter, "Look out that door and see if you see those other campers still there." And she looked out the door, and she came back and she's like, "Dad, we the only ones here. Everybody else gone." I was like, "Oh, so I guess we ain't gonna be able to stay here." So I told them to clean up everything inside the trailer, and I'm gonna go back to the truck and I'm gonna try and figure out where we're gonna go next. So I go into the truck, I turn on my GPS, and I'm trying to think, where can we go? Where can we park at tonight? I still gotta get my payload done. And I was thinking, I got two launch sites planned out already. Maybe we can go to one of those launch sites and park at that place, and then we'll already be there in the morning, so we'll be like taking care of two problems at the same time. We can go to the launch site, I could park the trailer, I could finish my payload, and my children can get some rest. And that will work. I think that'll be all right. So I looked at my two launch sites that I had planned, and the closest one was in this little town. I think it was called Xena, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. It was like a fork in the road, and it was like a little turnaround in that little area for like trucks. And I was like, that should be big enough for us to back in and and we could just stay the night there. I was like, that's a good plan. All right, so we get on the road, and I miss a turn. I couldn't turn around, so we ended up having to go about 30 or 40 miles out of the way to get back around to where we were supposed to make the turn. So it's getting late now. It's almost like maybe 9:30 at night, and I'm getting tired. I've been up all day. I'm ready to get this balloon payload finished and get some sleep. And so we back into that little spot, and I get everybody all settled, and everybody's in their bunks, and I take out my little payload and I get to working on it. About 5 minutes or so later, I look up and there's some headlights in my window. I'm like, what are these headlights in my window for? And so I sat there for a minute or two, and then I saw another set of headlights come up into the window, and I was like, wait a minute, what is going on? There's two trucks sitting out there. And then the next thing I see, they got some two guys getting out, and they got the flashlights, and they're flashing their flashlights all over the windows too. So I open the door and I say, "May I help you?" And then the guy said, "You can't park here." And I was like, "Well, I told them my situation. I told them everything that happened that day, and they wasn't listening. They didn't want to hear it. It was private security, type." So I was like, "Okay." So we wasn't going to be able to park there either. All right, so it's about 10 o'clock at night. The launch is going to take place at 8:30 in the morning. And I don't have a place where I can even finish the payload at. And I'm like, I'm thinking like, where can we go? So we head back over to Salem because I didn't want to take a chance at going to the next launch site and having the same situation happen. I said, we have to stand a better chance of getting the parking in Salem. So we drive on back down to Salem, and I'm passing through the downtown area, and I look on the side of the road, and it said 3 hour parking Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I was like, well, it ain't Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I guess we could park there. So we pulled over and we took up about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 parking spots, and we spent the night there on the side of the road in front of some business in the downtown area of Salem. But anyway, after we parked there, I went in the back of the truck. I got my children all settled in their bunks and got to working on that payload. And I still had maybe about another hour and a half more work to do on it. So I stayed up and I finished the payload, and I was like, whew, man, I'm tired. So I really wasn't sure how far I was to the second launch site. I wasn't gonna go back to the first one because the way those guys was acting, talking about private security and all. So I did a trip plan, and I found it was gonna take us about an hour to get to the next place. So I set my alarm for 5:15. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and I got me a few hours of sleep. Part 4, the launch. Alarm goes off. It's time to head over to the next launch site. So I get my children up, and I get them all settled, get them a little bite to eat, and we head on back out towards the next launch site. We get there. It's a like okay, the place that we were gonna go is this. It's a park. I can't remember the name of the town it was in. I want to say it began with a W, or it could have been an M. I can't remember. It'll be on the map. You'll see it. Anyway, we get there. It was a group of like maybe 3 or 4 baseball fields, and they had like parking area. So it's about 6:30 in the morning now, and we're pulling into that parking lot. And there are, a few people there already, and everybody's getting ready to watch the solar eclipse. And I guess this was prime location. So anyway, we pull in, we go around the parking lot, and I pull over to like the back, as far in the corner as I could possibly get back in the corner. And we get out the truck, and um, my my son takes out the cylinder for the helium, and I start rolling out the tarps, and we start getting everything ready for the launch. All right, so while we're there, setting up, and people are walking by, and they're like, wondering what we're doing. And so I continued to work, and a few more minutes passed, and some more people started walking by, and they're wondering what we're doing. And so a couple of them came over and they asked, "Hey, what y'all doing?" I said, "We're getting ready to film the solar eclipse. We're going to use our high altitude balloon, and we're going to film it." And it was like, oh, they started having questions and stuff, and I was like, well, I got a deadline. I have to have this launch ready by 8:30. I can answer your questions, but I'm gonna have to continue to work. And so they said, okay, we understand. And so I continued on doing the setup because the night before I just got the payload ready, but then the day of the launch we had to do the setup. And so I had my youngest daughter out there sweeping off the tarp, making sure there wasn't no dirt on it. And my oldest daughter, she was taking pictures, and my son was helping me out. Okay, so it's getting about 7:30 or so, and we got a launch scheduled for 8:30, and I'm not anywhere near ready. So I'm starting to rush. There's lots of stuff that I have to do in the morning before the launch. So the first thing I did was to roll out the balloon. So I rolled out the balloon. I started filling it. That's the thing that takes the most time. So while the balloon was filling, I had my daughter hold that, and I got to working on the capsule. So I'm turning everything on. I want to make sure this time that every camera in that capsule is on. I was like, I'm going to make sure because I didn't want to repeat what I did that time when I was practicing. So I got the data computer running. I got the spot tracker turned on. I gave that to my youngest daughter, told her to walk around with it, make sure that it was going to be picking up some tracks. And we went in and I checked the computer. It was tracking, so I was like, okay, that's good. And so the last thing we had to do was to set up the gimbal. And that was the one thing that I hadn't done in any of my other launches before. I wanted to make sure I had that right. So we messed around with that for a while, and I made sure that it was staying on no matter which way the capsule turned. And the way I was doing that, I had a little tablet and I had my camera set up for Wi-Fi, and I can just look at whatever's on the camera scene on my tablet. So we finally got that thing lined up the way we needed to, but by the time we did that, it was pushing 8:45, and we were supposed to launch at 8:30. And I'm thinking, oh, I missed my window, but hey, we need to try to get this thing up as soon as we can. So I got the tape and I was taping the box, and I was like, I think I need to turn that Wi-Fi off because it may use up too much battery. So before we launched, I turned off the Wi-Fi on that camera, and then we let the balloon go and we launched. Part 5, the recovery. Okay, so we got the launch taken care of, and now we're in like a little waiting game to see, where the balloon is going to go. So first thing we usually do is we'll open up our computer program and track the balloon and see how it's tracking. So about 5 minutes or so after it left, we did the first track. And it was tracking the way the software said it was going to go. I told my children, okay, let's start cleaning up. We're going to be headed that way. Anyway, while we were cleaning up, a couple of the fellows that were asking me questions earlier were still there. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go up here and talk with them for a little while. So I walk over and they had some more questions for me. I answered them. And anyway, I just mentioned out of the blue, I was like, I sure wish I could drop my trailer here and do this recovery without that trailer on the back of my truck. It'll make it a whole lot easier. And one of the fellows that was there, his name was Doug. He was like, well, where's the balloon going to track to? And I was like, oh, it should be going down southwest of here. And he was like, oh. He said, well, you're welcome to drop your trailer off at my house if you like, but it's going to be in the opposite direction to where your balloon going. And I was like, well, that'd be all right. Because I would be able to, if I was able to drop that trailer, it'll make the recovery a whole lot smoother. And so he gave me the address to his place, and so we finished loading up the truck and picking up all our supplies and stuff off the ground, and we head out towards where he lives. And so we didn't wait for the eclipse. We drove out to an area. I guess it must have been about 90% coverage where we were when the eclipse happened. because it took us a little while to get where we were trying to get to. So when the eclipse started happening, we got out the truck and we went and we started watching it, and it was pretty cool. It wasn't like it would have been if it was in the 100% zone, but it was good. It was, I mean, we enjoyed what we saw. So anyway, we got back in the truck and then we continued on. Anyway, we dropped the trailer and I did another balloon track, and sure enough, the balloon was still in the air, but it was looking like it was getting ready to start on its way down. So we kind of had an idea where it was going to go, and I put in the coordinates to the last known location of the balloon into the GPS, and we made a trip going towards that area. So on our way to that area, the eclipse was finished, and people were starting to, try to get back home. And so it was a lot of traffic on the road. I mean, it was like unreal traffic. And most of the traffic was on the other side of the road, not on the side of the road where we were on. And I was thinking, hey, we're going to still do good time because most of the traffic is going in the opposite direction of where we're going. So we drive for about an hour or so, and we get to a turnoff, and we're going down this road, and then we hit traffic. And not only was it traffic, nobody was moving, not even an inch. And I was thinking, I wonder what's going on. So I was like, after about 10 minutes of waiting there, I was like, hey, let's get the computer out and see if the balloon has gone on past the point where we thought it was. And so we open the computer, we track it up, and we find that the balloon has already set down. And it had set down about 5 miles from where we were. And I was thinking, okay, got 5 miles to get there. Let me see if there's an alternate route that we can go to get to it. Around this time, my phone rang and it was a text. And so I asked my daughter to, read the text out to me. And she read the text. It said that we found your balloon. It's at these coordinates. And it gave out some coordinates. And I'm like, oh, okay. Hey, we can confirm if our balloon is actually where we think it is. So I had my daughter read out the coordinates to me. I wrote them down. And sure enough, those coordinates were almost dead on to where we had already got from our tracker. Okay, so we knew where the balloon was. All we had to do was get to it. First of all, I wanted to see if this traffic was going to clear up. So I got up out the truck and I asked a couple of people, and they was like, "There's a roadblock and nobody's getting through over here." And I was like, "Okay, bro, I think we're going to have to turn around." So I get back in the truck and I uh, I put the new coordinates into our GPS and I put down roadblock. It made us do a U-turn, and we ended up driving, I want to say, about 40 or 50 miles all the way around this whole area to get to the opposite end of this road that we're on right now and be headed back towards the balloon in the opposite direction. But the only thing I knew to do because the road was completely closed off. So we drive that all that distance. Most of it was in traffic, and it took us a long time to get that 40 and 50 miles. But anyway, we finally get around to the other end, and we get back on the road that we was on, and we drive down that road for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, and we get to another roadblock. And I'm like, they got this end closed off too. So I looked up at the GPS and I was like, well, we're closer. We're about 7/10 of a mile from the touchdown site. So I guess we're gonna have to just take the little detour they got, and we made the turn. And I saw that we was headed back towards the area where we just left, and I was like, I'm not gonna go back over there. I was like, it's closed on that end too, and it's further. I was like, I'm gonna turn this truck around. I'm gonna go down to the roadblock, and I'm gonna park the truck at the roadblock, like off in the medium, and I'm just gonna walk the rest of the way to the payload. So we get the truck all backed up and turned around, and I was thinking, we was really glad we dropped that trailer because it would have been hard to turn that truck around if we had that trailer on the back of it. So anyway, we get turned around, and we're headed back towards the roadblock, and I see that there's a state trooper and a looks like a county worker or maybe a city worker. Anyway, they were removing the roadblock. I was like, well, that worked out just fine. I'm glad we turned around. And so we get over to where the roadblock was, and now we can make that right. So we make the right and we go on down to where the balloon touched down. Okay, the balloon touched down at this, like, it looked like a state park. The sign said Mission Park. And so we went on down it was like a little access road, and we got to the booth where they take the money, and there was nobody in there. And I was like, okay, well, I guess we don't have to pay. And so we drive on around to where the parking area is, and we park the truck, and I take out my tablet, I get my little coordinates, and I said, okay, we're going to walk the rest of the way. And we end up crossing out of the park, and we went over here into this like berry field. The berries were like kind of like already harvested a little bit. They were like cut in half, and so that kind of made it a little easy. But they had these thorns on them. I think they were raspberry plants. They had some thorns on them, and they had some bees around. And my daughter, she's afraid of bees. She's afraid of bees, and so she kind of like hung back, and I kind of like went and did the walking. Okay, so I get to the point where the GPS tracker coordinates said that the balloon was, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't see the balloon. And so I kind of look over a couple of the rows, and I didn't see anything, and I was thinking, well, it should be here. I said, oh, you know what? I have that T beacon. I can key the mic on my T beacon, and I can hear the little beep go off. I said, that's how I can find it. So I key my mic, nothing. I key the mic again, nothing. I'm like, is the T beacon working? I was like, it was working before we left, and now the T beacon ain't working. I was like, okay, I got to find this payload. So I started climbing over rows, and eventually it was about maybe 50 feet from where we were. And I found the balloon, the payload. Okay, so I'm looking at the payload, and I'm like, there's something else wrong. When I do my launches, I can tell, if it's a good launch just by looking at the remnants of the balloon. Now, I had one launch earlier. It had a balloon that malfunctioned. It popped at about 75,000 feet, and it left the majority of the balloon on the stub. And when I looked at this balloon, it looked just like that one. And I was like, man, I had a balloon failure. I hope I got at least 75,000 feet. And so anyway, I roll up the remnants of the balloon, and I stick it on top of the capsule, and I pick it up, and I start walking back. My daughter had hung back a ways because she was afraid of the bees. Anyway, I get back over to where she is, and I say, look, we found it. And she was like, oh, good, we got it. And then, so anyway, we start walking back over to the truck, and we get to the truck, and I set the capsule down on top of the hood. And I tell my daughter, I said, I'm gonna go ahead and do a preliminary check to see, if anything else had went wrong. I already knew the balloon had malfunctioned, but I wanted to make sure everything else was right. So first thing I looked at was my gimbal camera because it was sitting on top of the payload and it was open. I looked at it. I looked at the display, and the display said one video recorded. And I knew that couldn't have been right because it only records like 2 GB chunks. So it should be like 34, 32 videos on or more recorded, depending on how long the thing ran. And I only had one video. And I was like, something must have happened on that camera. I said, that's okay. I got 4 other cameras in this payload. Even if we didn't get nothing from the gimbal, we got something from the other 4. So I take the tape off the box, and I'm looking. And the next camera I look at was the Garmin camera because that was the one I forgot to turn on the test flight. And I was like, I want to make sure that one was okay. So I opened that one up, and it said disk full. I was like, good, okay, we got some shots with that camera. So I turned that one off, and then the next camera I looked at was the Hero 3 camera that was facing up, and it had a solar filter on it. And I said, I hope I got some footage from that one because I didn't get nothing from the gimbal. And I read it, and it said full. I was like, okay, good. I got video on that one too. So I turned that one off, and then I looked at the other camera that was facing up, but that one that didn't have a filter. And I looked at it, and it was dead. It wasn't even on at all. I was like, okay, I guess maybe the battery ran out on that one. So I said, I'm pretty sure I got some footage on that one too. Okay, so then I looked at the camera that was facing down. Only thing on that one had a 7.2 millimeter lens. That was the one facing the ground. That was the one I wanted to look at to show the shadow. Okay, so I take that one off and I look at it, and that one, it was still on, and it was reading full. Okay, so I was like, all right, I'm happy, I'm satisfied. We got some footage. But I was wondering about that gimbal camera. I was wondering why it didn't record. And I said, I'm gonna have to do an after launch investigation when we get home to find out what happened. So anyway, I turn off the data computer. I turn off. Oh, I wanted to find out what happened with my T beacon because the T beacon was working when we launched because I checked it a couple of times and it gave me the coordinates. I kind of looked at it and I was like, well, everything looks good on it. So I disconnected the battery and I reconnected the battery and it came on and it started working. And so I don't know what was wrong with that T beacon. It just decided it wasn't going to help me find the payload on this launch for some reason. Okay, so I got everything turned off. We piled the balloon into the capsule and the parachute, and then we set it in the truck, and we started heading back out. Now I know there's a lot of traffic on the road, and I was like thinking, what can we do to better manage our time since we're going to be stuck in traffic anyway? I got this helium cylinder in the back of my truck. It's heavy. I can just take this over to the air gas and we can drop all that weight off, and that'll make the trip home a little better. I was like, we're going to have to go through traffic anyway. I typed in air gas and they had one pretty close to where we were. So we made a trip over to the air gas place. I dropped off the cylinder and then we went on back over and we loaded the trailer back up. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, we went through a whole lot of traffic and I saw a whole bunch of recreational vehicles, travel trailers going down the road. I said, I'm pretty sure we can spend the night at an RV park tonight because I'm pretty sure, they got some openings. So I start, searching for an RV park close to where we were so we can just wait and go in the morning because I'm just too tired. And so there were 3 RV parks close by where we were, and I called all 3 of them, and all 3 of them said they were still booked. I was like, well, we ain't gonna be able to park at an RV park tonight. So, yeah, we stayed at a Walmart parking lot on the first night, and we tried on the second night. Maybe they won't have any restrictions over here in this area. I guess we're gonna have to go over to the Walmart parking lot and spend the night. So I typed in Walmart into the GPS, and they had one about 10 miles away. So we headed over there. And this was a little small place too. It wasn't like a big city. So when we got there, it didn't have no restrictions on the parking and stuff. And there was one other guy that we saw there in his RV already, and he was spending the night. So I was like, okay, we'll park over close by him. So we get over there and we back in, and we're kind of like out in the out of the way area. And I asked my children, "Are y'all hungry?" And it was like, "Yeah, we're hungry." I was like, "Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll go inside the trailer. We'll try and get it cleaned up as much as we can." I said, "I know we can't take no showers and none, but at least we can do is change our clothes and wash our hands and our face and stuff. Once we get all that done, I'll cook some dinner and we can go ahead and turn in for the night." My daughter said, would it be okay if we looked at a movie? I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, y'all can look at a movie as soon as y'all get finished with everything. I said, y'all pick one while I'm cooking dinner, and we'll look at the movie, and when we get finished eating, and we can go and go to bed. So I have Netflix, and I had mobile internet access, so they searched in the children movies, and we found this one about a little dog. I want to say his name was, it was a dog in Alaska. I think it was Boto or Voto, something like that. Anyway, it was a cute little movie. It was pretty cool. And so I cooked some dinner for us, and we sat there ate their dinner and had some apple juice and watched Boto. And it was getting about, I want to say maybe around 9 o'clock at night. I was like saying, you know, y'all, I am very sleepy. I'm gonna go turn in for the night. And so my daughter said, okay, well, good night. And my son and them said, we're gonna turn in too. So we all went to bed about 9 o'clock. Part six, the trip home. Okay, so we got up bright and early the next morning. I did a little trip plan, and I estimated we should get back to the house about 7:30 or 8 o'clock that night. So we got started. Just like the rest of this trip, things didn't go the way we had planned. We got stuck in traffic. We were thinking that the traffic would have been died down enough to where it would be a good little trip home, but it didn't work out that way. Anyway, it ended up taking us an extra 5 hours to get home. It was about 12:30 at night when we finally got home. So I had originally planned to like go over the video when I got home, but that got squashed. So we had to wait till the next day. Part 7, taking a look at the data. Okay, so next morning I got up. I opened the payload box, pulled out the cameras. I decided I was going to take a look at the data. The first camera I wanted to look at was the one that was on the gimbal. Even though it was only one video recorded, I wanted to see what it captured. And as I suspected, it was the video of us setting the camera up. After investigating what happened, I found out that it was my mistake. When I turned off the Wi-Fi just before the launch, I also stopped the recording. It was my mistake. So that's what happened to that camera. Okay, so the next camera I looked at was the Garmin camera. So I connected the camera to the computer and I started downloading the video. While the video was downloading, I noticed something kind of odd. And that was that there was only 1 GB of data stored on that camera. And the flash card that was in the camera was 64 gigabytes. And so I'm thinking, okay, what's going on with this camera? All right, so I took a look at the video and it only recorded about 5 minutes of video. And then the flash card failed. And that's why it was saying it was full when it really wasn't. Okay, so I really didn't get anything off of that camera either. Just the setup of the payload, and it didn't get anything from the air. Okay, I was disappointed with those two, and I was thinking, well, I got 3 more cameras. Let's see what we can retrieve from those. Okay, so the next camera I looked at was the Hero 3 camera with the solar filter. It also read full when I retrieved the payload. I put that card into the computer and it did have all of its data there. It was a completely full card. And when I was examining the footage after it downloaded into the computer, I noticed that it was out of focus. I was like really wondering, okay, what's going on here? Okay, I got 3 cameras and 3 sets of videos that are not usable. I did a little investigation on the camera to find out why it was out of focus. There's a glue that holds the lens in place. Well, that glue had come undone somehow. And when I cleaned the lenses prior to the launch, it turned that lens and it was out of focus. Okay, so that's 3 cameras that are down. All right, so the next camera I looked at was the one next to it. It was the upward facing camera that had no filter. I took the memory card out, I put it in the computer, and I checked it, and it only had like 3 minutes of video on it too. I did an investigation on it, and I found out that it had a faulty USB connection. And if the wire is moved just the slightest, it resets the camera and it leaves it in a non-recording mode. So it only recorded the balloon upward shots while we were getting the capsule ready. And then I guess the wire must have gotten jarred and it reset that camera. Okay, so I got no footage from that one either. Now this is 4 cameras out of 5 that I got nothing out of. Well, I did get something from the Hero 3, but it was just out of focus. It had good audio, and I did use that in the video, but it had no good video. Completely out of focus. Okay, so my last chance of getting some kind of footage from this balloon was in camera 5. Camera 5 was the one that was facing downward. It was the one I was going to catch the shadow as it rolled across the earth. And that camera was showing that it was full, and it did capture the video. It was in focus. It was usable. It did run out of memory before the camera made it to the ground, so I didn't actually catch the landing, but I did catch the flight. So I will be showing you all that video. Completely disappointed with how this thing came out, but you know, it is what it is. I did find some interesting things in that video, and I will be sharing that with you in part 8. Part 8. A few events that took place during the flight. There are a few things that happened during the flight that I thought were worth mentioning. First thing had to do with the data computer. I noticed that as it gained altitude, I would say after 9,000 feet or so, it got harder for the computer to get a satellite lock. And it takes 3 satellites for it to lock. And when it didn't lock, it would throw off the readings for the altitude and the speed. I just found that interesting. I think what I would do for my next flight is turn the antenna towards the ground instead of up in the air and see if I have a better satellite lock, because I don't really think that computer is using satellites to lock. I think they're using cell towers. Anyway, that's something for my next experiment. The next thing I found interesting was when the balloon burst, it didn't jar the capsule or shake it violently like my other launches, and I just thought that was kind of peculiar. It just seemed to just drop it. This whole thing with the balloon it's just strange to me on this launch. Okay, the next thing that was interesting in the flight was the actual eclipse itself, and I think that you will probably find very interesting. I'm gonna put a little clip of that up right now, and then I'm going to also have the entire video after this one. Okay. Oh, one other thing. We had a flyby of a jet when the payload was on its way down to the ground, and I thought that was interesting too. Take note of the plane's exhaust when it passes by. Okay, so that's it. Part 9 is going to be a conversation of some people who witnessed the payload land on the ground. That's a little conversation they had when they found the payload. I just thought it was kind of interesting. All right. Well, y'all have a good one. When that is over, we will be having the full video of what I recorded for this launch. And y'all have a great day. Bye.
So somebody was taking pictures of the eclipse. See, it's got
Yep.
a number on it and everything.
Scientific experiment.
It says number on it, like it's a
Dwayne Cullen.
high altitude balloon and it's an eclipse zone.
Eclipse camera.
Camera.
You calling him up?
Well, yeah, okay. So what's his number again?
408.
The problem is seeing my phone.
Where is 408? 594.
Just a second, I'm going to see my phone. Okay, 408.
594. Science experiment. This balloon camera is a property of Dwayne S. Cullen. It says, if found, please call 209-826.
So call
209.
what's the other side?
Or email me at chywat63@gmail.com. This one is 209-826. Or email.
826.
Or email me at chywap63@gmail.com. Dwayne.
Hi, I found this number on a box. Do you know anything about a Dwayne? Is there a Dwayne there?
Dwayne S. Salem.
Your dad. Okay. Well, we found his balloon camera. It's at Willamette Park. Willamette Mission Park. It's a state park.
It's actually in a field outside.
It's in, you know, it's in a field outside the park.
I'll never find it if you don't.
Do you want to call him, and then do you want to call my phone? Have him call. It's 971. Yes, and have him call me right away because we're on bikes and we just biking by and saw it come down, so we're ready to leave here soon.
We could probably give it to the park ranger or something.
Okay, sure. Yep. Bye bye. Yeah, we can tell the park ranger that it's you.
Or just
It's his daughter. Yeah.
just give it to him.
Yeah. She sounded Vietnamese or no, she had an Oriental.
Okay, so I could sell the latitude longitude.
Okay.
I could send it to that cell number.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go.
Great.
Yes, assuming that's still his number. I
Yeah.
mean,
But where is 206, do you think? Where is that? Was it 206 or 209? What
I
area
know,
code
but
is
you
that?
know how that is. People don't have the same. I mean, they just
Yeah.
buy a phone and then they
Well, that's
keep
true.
it. So I never think about that anymore.
let me see if I can't seem to get this to
Well, you-
copy. So
Is our bike still okay? I don't want them to get stolen. Yeah, I don't think you could send it from that far away.
No.
I mean, to get here.
He must be local.
Yeah, he came local.
Why is he not answering? Like, why is he not?
Well, maybe he didn't expect it to go down so quickly. Or maybe he intends. Maybe he's close by.
So this is like a GoPro type thing or something? 3D Pro. Be nice if he'd send us his pictures. It's a
Yeah.
reward, you know, for finding, because, you know, this could have been one of
It's a California telephone. Split from 216.
we have like a geo tracker or something.
yeah.
think we all do.
We just don't know what we
We just
have.
don't know what we have. Well, there's a geo tracker in there. I don't know if we can all access it.
You don't know what you got till it's gone. They pay paradise and they put up a parking lot.
I remember when Joni Mitchell was my favorite.
Judy Collins is coming to Aladdin. That's what
She'll never die.
I thought I'd go and see her.
Jerry Lewis
Really,
died
she's coming to
yesterday.
the Aladdin?
Yeah, Aladdin, that's right. Yeah. She's a 2-bit player now. She's 70 or something.
What do you mean 2-bit?
But she's coming to the
During her
Aladdin.
prime.
She's not coming. I know. No, I would go see her. I got had all her albums, in the days of albums. But no, I mean, Joni Mitchell was the queen. She was my favorite. I saw Joni
As a matter of
Madison.
fact, I want to go listen to it.
Kissing
When I
of
get
Summer
home, I'm
Lawns.
going to listen to it.
Wasn't it
Spotify.
Jaguar?
I think it was when the gyro was out. But she got real slick. It was a little disappointing. Because she went from being this folk hero to this like very jazzed up slick on stage in Madison. What's with that? You're my hero.
I remember you came back and it was just like she was a little too polished. She was too slick.
Yeah.
Didn't like her that much.
So what do we do? Are we going to leave it here and send it to him? Or do we bring it to the...
Edge of the road.
Well,
Because
that
I
might
don't see
make
any
it more...
rangers around here, do you?
No, we'd have to go searching, so I don't really want to do that.
want to do that.
8598, hold on.
I wonder though if we can make it easier to find. as
Maybe
opposed to-
I'll try this.
Drape that over the wire.
I'll try this other number because it was just
So
like
I
three-
just sent this. Latitude and longitude. Your balloon camera is in a buried field left side of the road as you enter Mission Park.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
So that'll make it
that's
more
great.
visible.
And then if he calls me, I'll just say, "Look at your other message." And
And it's, and it's about, what, not even a quarter mile from the entrance, maybe?
Yeah, it's just like, and I guess we found it.
we found
Yeah,
it.
we found it. But we saw it go down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's in a. What kind of berries were those, Jeff?
I think it's a Marion.
He ate
Marionberry.
them.
It's
He's in
Marionberry, too.
Okay, Marionberry. It's in a Marionberry field,
If they're not Marionberries, they should be.
and I couldn't even tell him which road. Maybe he's on his way.
You have latitude, longitude. It can't be much better than that.
No.
Well, I would actually
Assuming
think he
like
probably
ha-
has it.
assuming this is
Wouldn't you think he
accurate.
has
Yeah, he
something
must
in
have it
there that
tracking.
gives him?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
true.
would
So
think
what?
so.
Yeah, you're right.
They're like
you're right.
15
Why
bucks.
should we? Right.
And the camera's still locked onto the sun. You ready?
Almost there. Yeah, somewhere.
Okay, it's gonna go this way.
No.